Hi, Scott again here, and today I want to talk to you about how to build a shelf um, for books or whatever you want to do. We found that we've got a desk in a room that just doesn't work. We've got a computer monitor on it, we've got all kinds of technology kinds of things. We've got a printer, a router on it, and we wanted to move it into another room, but we've got about 27 inches wide before it would hit the side of a TV, and we could go clear to the ceiling, but we wanted something that was quick and easy to do. And I do have a table saw, but I wanted to see if I could just go to like a Lowe's or a Home Depot and just buy some materials, slap it together, and get it done really fast. So what I did is I wanted to do something with melamine, and so I went down to turned out to be Home Depot, and we got some pieces of this. It's I think it's 15 3/4 inches wide, so it will be actually facing out in the room like this, and then we'll put a top on it and we'll put shelves in it. So these are about 8 feet tall, and so what I told them is I want it to be 24 inches wide, and so I said cut a 2-foot piece off of the top. So they did that, and then we got another piece that doesn't have these shelf holes, and I told them I want them to be for shelves. And so at the top, well, I'll do it this way. At the top, if you put the piece I put off, I cut off, had them cut off the top. If you put it inside, you'll have 24 inches, and then you would have to have them cut 1/8 of an inch off each shelf, because with the little pinhole thingamadoos that sit in there, they come out a little bit, and so they hold it out a little bit from being flush, and so you have to have the shelves be just a tiny bit shorter so they will slide in. But what I'm doing, I'm going to stick it on top, so I had them cut each shelf 1.5 inches shorter. So 24 inches up top, 22.5 inches inside. The thing I didn't think of then is I should have had the inside 22.5 minus 1/8 of an inch, and then they would have fitted perfectly. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to have to trim off 1/8 of an inch on my table saw. And just a hint for you, if you're cutting stuff with a saw, cutting the melamine, you'll get less chip out, meaning that when you cut, you'll get little tiny chips along the edge. This one actually has a piece of finished material on the outside, but where was I going with that? Anyway, on the edge that's cut, I don't think you'll be able to see this, but anyway, there's a tiny little bit of chip out. I asked them how much chip out they usually got on their saw, and they said not much, and so I just said cut it. So the mistake I made is I had 2 of these on the cart when I wheeled it down to where they were going to cut it, and I must have turned one around, so when they cut, everything would have gone very quickly, very fast. I would have had finished edges on the front, and on the top piece there's a finished edge that'll go across the front, and would have been great. But somehow one of these boards got flipped up the other way, so when it got cut, the holes don't match up. The other one is just slightly below the other holes, so the shelves would all be slanted. So what I had to do is I will have to flip, I'll have to flip this board around, so I'll have an unfinished piece on the front on one side and finished on the other. So what can you do? Well, you can go get, they actually have some stick-on white that would finish it perfectly, but I already had some edge banding. They call it edge banding tape. It's really just a thin piece of wood, and I don't know if you can see right on here, there's glue on it. So I would put this board down so the edge was up, down on a flat surface, and I would get an iron. So it's heat activated, and you put this just a little bit above the top, and you hold your fingers on here, get an iron, and I'll show you that. I'll show you doing it. And you just heat it up and go slowly down the whole thing and let it bond. So with this, the extra step I'll have to do, I'll put it on, and then I'll have to put some primer on it and then some high gloss paint. And you probably won't even notice. The other thing I could do is I could go down and just buy a 15-foot piece. I think they come in, it's like 15 or 25-foot rolls of the white plastic, and I could just stick it on and be done. Wouldn't have any extra work, and it might actually match even closer because it has the white high gloss finish that wouldn't look painted. But people don't look at your finished product closely at all. They just see the whole thing. So here's the way I bought the edge banding tape. 250-foot roll. I think it was like $30. So I can use this for the next few years. But what I bought it for is I made these counters or these cabinets, and so I had to edge band all of the front edges of the melamine boards in the shelves. And I've got a pantry back here that I also did all the front edges and all of there's shelves in there, and I also did those. So it's up to you whether you go and just buy the plastic, and those just have like a piece of tape on the back. You pull it off and just stick it to it and you're done. In fact, as I'm talking about that, I think they're about $7 for the 25 feet. It seems like that's what it was. It might be a little more, a little bit less, not sure. But like I mentioned, one of the mistakes I made was I didn't, I forgot what I was going to say. Anyway, what I should have done is I should have figured out the exact amount of inches. Like I said, I've got 27 or 28 inches wide that I could put the shelf, but I just told them 24 inches and then the others 21 and a half. But in doing that, I ended up with a piece left over. And if I would have said, okay, cut the first one 25 inches or 25 and a quarter, and then the others an inch and a half less than those, I could have used all this up and maybe got an extra inch and a half on the width. So it would have paid me to take a little time and figure out how many shelves I could get for the project out of the piece that didn't have the shelf holes in it. And for the top and the bottom, since those have shelf holes in it, so this has the shelf holes in it, and you can see it's got a finished edge right there, but I'm going to put it on the top, but you see there, unfinished edge, unfinished edge. So I'm going to have to put a finished edge on there. So because it has the holes in it, I'm going to put this on the top. But if you were going to have it a taller one, you could flip that around and have those on the top where nobody would ever see them. When it's on the inside, the underside, and on the bottom, I've got another one of these, and I'll turn those down and put the holes down, so all you'll see is the nice finished melamine. So to put these all together, I've got some finished pieces, or not, some edge banding pieces. Those will go on the I've got 4 of those. I need 2 for the top sides and 2 for the bottom sides. And one of the other things I thought about is I may just take this, cut it in half, and put one piece over on one side on the bottom and one piece on the other, and it would be kind of like feet for the cupboard. But then I would just do the edges with the edge banding tape to finish it off. So when I've got, so what I'm going to have to do to do these, and I'll show you when I'm doing it, is if I was going to put them inside this board right here, I would put screws through the end, and what you're going to need is you're going to need a countersink. I use an 1/8 inch drill bit, and I'll drill in, I use 2-inch screws, and I just use the drywall screws. I don't have one right here. Oh, I do. I just use the 2-inch drywall screws. These say number 6. I think actually most of the time I use number 8s, and then the 1/8 inch pre-drilled hole, and that's what this is for. I actually set these down on the edge on the floor, but I'll put something under the floor, or not under the floor, under the cabinets, because I'm going to glue these, and I'll put the long one here, and I'll use a square to make sure it's square, and then I will drill in some holes, but you'll want to miss right here where they've already got holes here, because you won't get the strength. But you could put probably 2 or 3 in here. But what you have to be careful of is when you're putting 3 in a row, many times it will actually split. And what I do to help prevent that is I will screw in from the side, and then I will dip the screw in wood glue, and then I will put it in. But I also use melamine glue along this edge, and well, it's like this. This is what I've used in the past. Type Bond melamine wood glue. Works really well. It will stick to this plasticized surface, and that's what I used on all my cabinets. None of them fell off the wall yet, but I dipped the screw in. You know, the other board is right here, but they're all on the floor, and I'll show you as we go along how I do that. I'll do the edge banding, I'll put them up, and a lot of times when you've got things on the floor, like I don't have a workbench right now. I had one, but it was outside, and I had to take it down because of space needs. I had it on our driveway. I had some temporary, well, not temporary, some just plastic Harbor Freight sawhorses, and I had 2 4x8 sheets of chipboard. It's got the kind of wafer board. It's got the big long pieces. I can't even think what it's called now. Anyway, it's not particle board, but anyway, I had two of those together, two 4x8 sheets, so I had a long workbench. I don't have that right now, so I'm going to build this in our kitchen, and I'll put it on the floor. I'll put some plastic down, put it on the floor, and when I go to put them together, I'll put some glue in it, and then I'm going to put duct tape around the corner to hold it together, and that will make it so I don't have to constantly adjust it. If I was going to have the top, well, I'm going to have the top on the top, and I'm going to put the screws down through this way. If I was going to have them inside, I could put a clamp from one side to the other and hold them together with that top inside. That's what I've done on my cabinets, but this I want on the top, and so there's no way to hold them together. So I'm going to put it up here, put duct tape over and down to hold them down, but it'll all be on its side like this, and that will hold it temporarily while I do the screws. And if you have a nail gun, like I've got a finished nail gun, and you can put it down and pop a couple of nails in there to just hold it temporarily until you get to the screws. But if you don't have that, just use the screws. So when I came down to decide about building a shelf, I was looking at this and this. They're both 15 3/4 inches across, and they are 8 feet tall. So you can see actually 97 inches. So what I did is I said I got two of these, and I had them cut 2 feet off the top, and I was going to use one for the top and one for the bottom, and they would both have holes in them, but I turned one up so the holes were up, and the bottom one I put the holes down so you can't even tell that there's holes there. But if you have a jig, like a Craig jig, to do the holes like this, I would actually get these and do your own holes, and I would put them a little farther in, about to here. So then when you're hooking the tops in, you could put a screw down through the top board right here, and two more in the middle, and one over here, just for extra strength. And they'll cut them for you here. And so if you don't have I was going to say a chainsaw. You could do a chainsaw, but you wouldn't have very great straight edges. But anyway, they say they don't do really, what do you call it, close cuts, but as long as you tell them what you're going to do, they'll cut it and get it exactly the size you want. So if you wanted to do a shorter cabinet, you could just have them cut this off, and cut off those two and use a couple of those as shelves. What I did is I had two of those and I cut that as shelves. Okay, so one of the dangers of doing this all by yourself is I was moving this while I was holding this, and I sat it down right on the side of it. Just snapped it. And then I picked it up, moved it again, and snapped it again. So try to do this when you're not trying to also record, and you'll have less goof ups. Okay, so I've cut a new piece, and let's see if I do the same thing again. See if I can get down here on the end. There, let me see the end. So I've got the iron heated up, and it needs to be on cotton, and it needs to have the steam off. So you put it on the end and spread it out here a little bit. You don't have to spread the whole thing out, but just try to get even across both sides, and just start going along, and move your fingers up like this to help guide it as you're going along. You want to stay a little bit ahead of it, or quite a bit ahead of it, so it goes straight. I feel it's a little crooked, but might have to tip it up again, up and down a little bit. Mine turns off even though you're using it, so you have to tip it up when it gives you the little warning beeps. And as I do this, after I get the whole thing done, I'll tilt it and push the edges down like this. Not at a steep angle, but just to make sure I get the edges really well connected. So don't go terribly fast. And do it down over the end just a bit, not enough to snap it. And usually you can do this with your regular iron. That's what this is. It's the one we do shirts and dresses and pants with. And I've never had the glue get on the iron yet. And I've done probably, I don't know, 200 feet. So I've got it clear over to the end, and it goes over about 1 inch. You don't need to have it go 1 inch over, but I just did a little bit extra just to make sure I got it. Then you can trim it right at the end. And if you do it this direction, not direction, but do it this way with the whole length of it, it will heat up as you go along. And that does not like being on dry somehow. Let's see if I can move this, which I can't. There, get it down to where I can get easy access. And we'll finish it off. I was worried about this edge banding because it had been out in my truck and it had been 107 degrees, and I thought maybe the glue would have melted, but I really think it needs to be up around 200 for that to melt. So I'm going to tilt it down and make sure the end gets done. I'm going to tilt it along the sides to make sure they get tilted a little bit, or at least the edge hooked down well. And then there's an edge banding trimmer that makes doing the edges easy. You can do it with an X-Acto knife if you're careful. If you're not, you won't do a really good job. Okay, that's the big one. Move that out of the way. Maybe. Tilt that like that. And I'll do some of the smaller ones. Pre-cut those to size and go down over each end. It really does give you a nice finished edge. Move these closer so you can see them a little better. And there's nothing that really tells you that it's hooked down good enough. Some people actually take a board or something, and as it's cooling off, we'll push down just one more time across the whole middle and on the edges at a slight angle to make sure it's all hooked down. And I have had some at times that didn't quite get hooked down in places. Okay. I only have two of these to do, the top and the bottom. The shelves don't need it because the front edge already has a finished edge with some edge banding. So two more pieces like this and I'll be done, at least with the edge banding. And I do this before I put them all together because you need access to the whole width of it when you use the edge band trimmer. Let's see, I'm going to have to keep that up on its edge. Pretty simple to do, but it gives you a nice look. Some people just like the look of the wood like this, and so they won't even finish it, or they'll just put some polyurethane or something on it. They like the contrast of the wood finish and the melamine. So tilt it on every side. At least every edge. Okay. Don't want to put that down on the plastic. Last one. So I will, like I mentioned, put some primer and some high gloss paint on this just to match the look of the shelf. And on all the cabinets, you can't tell I've even done that. Okay, that should be good. So I'm just going to take the, no, I'm not going to do that. Oh, it's got a pretty good edge. I'm just going to run this along there just to push it down. Just something that's smooth. Get one last little press while it's still warm. Okay, done. Now let it sit for a few minutes and then we'll trim it. This would definitely be easier if I had a workbench. I didn't have to get on my knees. Anyway, this is the trimmer for the edge banding, and I put it together with some painter tape because it comes apart. So it has the blade right here, and you can take those out. You just put that back in like that, and you have to make sure the arrow is pointing the same way on both sides. And then what you do is you put it on the edge of the board, squeeze it, and push it along, and it'll trim both edges at the same time. Now what I generally do when I get these here is I will trim off the edge if it needs it. Well, that didn't have much. When I get ready to finish with this, I will actually get a sander, palm sander, and go straight up here and hold it up against there. So this is flush, and then I'll just put it at a slight angle and touch it a couple of times. And I will do the same thing. Well, after I've trimmed these edges off, they can be kind of sharp, and this can sometimes beat the heck out of the melamine, kind of chip it off. But I'll take the palm sander and put it at an angle and just lightly go over it a couple of times, turn, go lightly a couple this way, and that makes them nice and smooth. And sometimes you'll have a little bit of glue left over, and you can just take a razor blade, put it up there, and just go like that and scrape it right off. So I'm going to turn this around. This one is a little longer, so I'm going to trim that one. And up here, a little trimmage. Over here, a little trim. And I always put a glove on when I'm doing this, because I didn't the first time, and I got some great slivers. So you can see the edge banding goes, the edge banding goes right in those slots, and you can have it upside down or this way, as long as you always go in the direction of the arrow. So you put that edge banding right in those slots, and then you just squeeze a little bit and go across. Do it again, and we'll do a little more time. Just feel along here. Okay, so this is one reason you don't hook them together before you edge band, because you won't be able to get on both sides. Okay, arrows go in that direction. Put it on, squeeze. Feel along. It still has a little bit of it left. And maybe one more. Okay, that's good. Get all the trimming done first. Then it doesn't tend to catch on anything. This shows you the trimmage. Don't even know if that's a word. Probably not. If not, so what? Okay. Gonna put it in the groove right there. Squeeze. And that's what's left. Okay, you figured that out. Must have been almost smart. There's several brands of these. This was like $17, I believe. There was one that was $31. Not sure what the difference was, but I got this one, and I goobered up the edges of a couple of the first ones I did, and even some of the other ones, the later ones that I did. Squeezing too hard. Okay, that's good. Yeah, I'll move these out of the way. And we'll do the long one. Actually, I'm going to stand them up on the end so they don't get that edge and buckle it any. Okay, get the long one. And if I wouldn't have loaned my knee pads to someone, I'd have the knee pads. Be a smart addition. So that shows you all the trimming. It builds up a little bit in here. Do it again. Oh, I didn't trim off the ends first. Oh well. Then you can start in the middle. Yeah, these are definitely going to need to be sanded because these stick out just a tiny bit. And I don't want to try to get them any tighter. And I'll trim the end of this off. Okay, now they're ready for sanding. For those of you new to little palm sanders, you can buy the pre-cut ones that exactly fit there, but what most people do after a while is they just get the big sheets and fold them over a few times, and 1/4 sheet of these exactly fits that. And this is much cheaper than the pre-cut ones. Just square it up. Doesn't have to be exact, but it helps to have as close as you can. Just fold it back and forth a few times. And then you can just center it across the pad. Okay, that's about centered. And fold it tight. And then bend it down tight here. And this thing just lifts up. And you put it down there. Tight, make sure it's covering the rubber part. And then just tighten this down. This is a little newer version than I had before. So you got it all perfect, and you got 3 more sheets you could put on there. So I'm going to take off this little edge right here. I don't know if you can see that or not. Just gonna do it flat first. Scratch this up. This is the finished part. So you can do it at a little bit of an angle so you don't touch that. And then round it over. And then go a couple of passes on both sides, and then we'll do the other side here, the other end here. until it feels smooth. By the way, this is 120 grit. You could use a finer grit, but you really don't need to. And then I usually just hit the top part. Looks like I need a little bit more. You don't want to sand this too much because it's not that thick. Okay, now look at this end. Make sure it's flat. See, this is the unfinished side, so I can go up straight up off this one. Okay, that round that. To the other side now. You can tell when you've done enough, when you go like this, you won't feel any lip hanging over. There's a little bit right here. Okay, there's that one. Then we'll just finish the other two. Sometimes you'll have a little bit of gumminess, the glue from underneath just laying there. You can just scratch it off with your fingernail. Okay, that one feels good. Just knocking down those corners so they're not sharp. Didn't do that on this one. Need knee pads for this, but I think they're over my son's house. And you should put on a dust mask. Okay, now I've got to put these two together with the ends, and I'm going to have to make sure I put them close together to make sure the holes line up so I don't end up with a slant. Alright, so a little trick that I use when I've got some big pieces I've got to put together and I can't hold the corners up while I'm doing it is I just put some duct tape. I get them as close as I can, get the 90-degree square, and this might be a little bit out, but I get it close, and then I will put on the other end. So what I'm going to do down here on this end is I'm going to put a couple of, well, I'm going to put some glue, some melamine glue down here so it'll stick to there, and stick the wood into the melamine, and then when I've got that wiped up and down, I will put a nail here. You could just go ahead and put screws here. I'm going to glue it, put a nail here and one at the bottom, about 1.5 inches in, and then I will put 2 screws there and there, kind of spread them out. I don't think there's enough room for 3. If I put 3 in, the melamine will actually split right down the middle here, and I don't want that. So when I put the screws in, I will dip them in the melamine glue so it'll hold them even better. One other point is, you notice on the inside at the top, I've got the holes there, and at the bottom you won't see them because they're on the bottom, so they'll be hidden from most of what everybody sees. Okay, I've got my 1.5 inch nails, got my gun, I've got some melamine glue, and I've got a rubber glove so that I can spread the glue. There we go. Right here. Okay, put a little more on. Over here. Spread it, but you need to make sure that it doesn't just all soak in. Getting down to the end of the bottle. Okay. Now the only other thing I need is the square. Let's see if it's, yeah, it's pretty darn close. Yeah, that's square. Okay. So I've got to push these together to make sure they're tight. Let's see, gotta rub the excess glue off my finger. And you gotta make sure this is straight up so it doesn't crack the melamine or come out the sides of the melamine. Gotta be halfway through. There's one to hold it. Two to hold it. And sure my fingers are far away so I won't get those. Okay. And I'll wipe some of this glue up. I'll get it with a wet rag a little later. Okay. Now we'll get the screws. And you can see the head goes right there. So I've got it just short of how deep I want it. One thing I want to do is find a pencil, which is almost impossible. Melody, have we got any pencils? Buy a box of stinking pencils.
We have pencils.
These don't work. Beans. What might work?
We had, there was a whole bunch of them, either in a drawer downstairs or over here. Maybe it was in one of the.
Okay, I'm starting again. Okay, these are 3/4 inches, and I'm going to go 3/8 of an inch. I'm going to start from the mark right here and go, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Okay, 3/8 over there. And half. Three-eighths there. Okay. Now, you don't want to use an impact driver to do these, either to screw in the screws or to drill. Well, drill shouldn't matter, but you don't want to do it to do the screws in, because it'll go in fast and just they'll turn around and they won't hold. Okay, made it so it's countersink. The big question is, do I think it will need, I think it'll split if I put in 3. I'm going to drill the hole anyway. Halfway in between. Okay, and do the same thing over here. Run out of juice. Yep. Need a new battery. Nope. Okay. Let's try this one. And one down lower. Yes, I've been using the drill. Okay. Okay, I've got my 1.5 inch nails. Got my gun. I've got some melamine glue, and I've got a rubber glove so that I can spread the glue. There we go. Right here. Okay, put a little more on. Over here. spread it, but you need to make sure that it doesn't just all soak in. Getting down to the end of the bottle. Okay. So the only other thing I need is the square. Let's see if it's, yeah, it's pretty darn close. Yep, that's square. Okay. So I've got to push these together to make sure they're tight. Let's see, gotta rub the excess glue off my finger. And you gotta make sure this is straight up so it doesn't crack the melamine or come out the sides of the melamine. Gotta be halfway through. There's one to hold it. Two to hold it. Three. And make sure my fingers are far away so I don't get those. Okay. And I'll wipe some of this glue up. I'll get it with a wet rag later. Okay. Now we'll get the screws. And you can see the head goes right there. So I've got it just short of how deep I want it. But one thing I want to do is find a pencil, which is almost impossible. Melody, have we got any pencils? I'm gonna buy a box of stinking pencils.
We have pencils.
These don't work. Beans. They might work.
We had, there was a whole bunch of them, either in a drawer downstairs or over here. Maybe it was in one of the,
Okay, I'm starting again. Okay, these are 3/4 inches, and I'm going to go 3/8 of an inch. I'm going to start from the mark right here and go, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Okay, 3/8 over there. And half. Three-eighths there. Okay. Now, you don't want to use an impact driver to do these, either to screw in the screws or to drill. Well, drill shouldn't matter, but you don't want to do it to do the screws in, because it'll go in fast and just they'll turn around and they won't hold. Okay, made it so it's countersink. The big question is, do I think it will need, I think it'll split if I put in 3. I'm going to drill the hole anyway. Halfway in between. Okay, and do the same thing over here. One down lower. Okay, usually I'll put a little paper down. Yeah, let's get in. Here we go. Put a little bit on this. Yeah. I'm put in the middle one first. And you can get a wet washcloth, not washcloth, but a wet rag to wipe off the glue. I think I'm going to lay it down sideways next time so it doesn't go clear to the bottom. Yeah, that works much better. So just lay it down sideways if you've got mostly empty bottle. Okay, good. A couple more. We'll be done on this end. Okay, last one in. Okay, good. Now just get a damp rag, wipe those off, and we'll be done with this end. Okay, it's just a wet paper towel. And it'll wash right off. This is water soluble, so you don't want to get a lot of water in with the glue. Yeah, see, those are countersunk, nothing standing up, so that's good. Now we'll do the other end. Okay, same thing here. We'll do I'll take this off now. Just off this side. And we'll do 1, 2, 3/8. I do need to take both of these off. Well, that glue really likes that rubber glove. Glue on the duct tape. Okay, I have to glue it. I've got to squeeze out the last bit of this. I don't want to buy a whole new bottle since I've got most of my melamine projects done. Good bunch on there. Okay. Push that out a little bit. Got that. Drill some holes. I'll put the screws in there to pull the boards together so it'll be good and tight before the glue dries. And I look for my electric drill, and I think my son has borrowed it. Okay. Another fry coated with ketchup. Just about do those other two holes over here while I'm at it. Anyway, you can see when you're deep enough, when you're to this point right here. I don't know if you can see that or not. A few more screws. And more fry sauce. And the last one. And after this, the only thing that's left is to put the back pieces on. Like I mentioned before, I'm going to put a 1/4 inch piece up here, another one in the middle, and one at the bottom. Just give it a little more stability, prevent it from slipping one way or the other. I'm out here to cut a little bit off the shelves, about 1/8 of an inch, and to cut the back 3 pieces for the shelf. And just wanted to show off the mountains that are so close. They're about 5 minutes away. They're about, I don't know, 10,000 feet. It's nice to have some good scenery. Okay, I'm going to cut some 1/8 inch pieces off of these 4 pieces. And I've only got the blade raised enough so it'll come up about 60% through this, and then I'll flip it over and go back the other way on the other side. You'll get a lot less chipping if you do that. Just bring it back. So it's cut through most of it. I don't know if you can see that or not. There's some different views of it. So just come back and cut through the other piece. And you can see there's very little chipping. There's some tiny pieces, but not much. Both sides are very clean. Okay, now with it fitting, I'll just cut these other pieces. I think I'm going to start with the finished edge first towards the saw. And I'm trying to find which side is the most chipped out so I can maybe smooth that up just a bit. piece 2 feet wide. Let's see. I do 2 feet here. Oops. Looks like I got some wet. Well, sprinklers on, right? Okay. So 2 feet. I do. Yeah, that should be good. I'll just measure 2 feet. Just want a tiny bit under 2 feet, so it'll just hide just a hair. Of the back. Okay. And this, I don't need as high. A little higher. Okay, find out what the width of this is. The length now, I guess. 33 inches. Okay, so we'll just do 11 inches. And whatever's left is be a little bit bigger. Okay, 9 inches. I always measure the front and the end of the blade, or the front and the back of the blade. Make sure it's correct. Ready to finish it up. Just needs these pieces on it, and it'll be done. So here's the final result. We've got the shelves all cut, they fit in. I put those 1/4 inch boards on the back, pin nailed them in. I tried to use my 16 gauge nail gun, and it just blew it right through, even with the lower pressure. So anyway, I'll let this, I put glue under here to help support it. And then tomorrow, when it's all dry, we'll stand it up and slide it into the other room. And I'm going to put a plug, an extra plug in the wall up here and one down there, so that we've got plenty of places to plug in. Prior to this project, we had a VCR and a DVD player on top of here, cords all over the place, and there wasn't much room to store anything. And now with this, we've got shelves, shelves, shelves. And I painted this edge along here because I'd put edge banding on it. Painted this up here and on the other side over there, as well as the bottom 2 edges on the sides. And it turned out good. The back boards I painted with a high gloss paint. Let's see, there's another one in there. High gloss paint. And it turned out really well. And on each of the shelves, I cut a hole so that if I needed cords to go down, I could just put them through there. So instead of that with just something on the top, we've now got space for printer, VCR and DVD player, and some toys for the kids, and a speaker, and even stuff on top. It's actually, I thought it was going to be about 6 feet, but you can hear the booms from the fireworks outside. But I thought it was going to be 6 feet, but it looks like it's about 6'2". So you can just get those 97-inch pieces and make it yourself. Anyway, hope that helps, and hope you have a success like this turned out to be. Like I said, it's a little taller, which doesn't bother me at all because I'm 6'4", and hope that helps. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe, and leave any comments down below about what else you'd like to see. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.